Governor Gretchen Whitmer declared a state of emergency over the weekend to bring more energy to Michigan home.
20% of our economy is tied to the auto industry, which depend on a steady flow of goods from our largest and closest trading partners.
I would say in the last month, we've seen gas price wars, which we never really experienced too much before.
Across the northern United States, gas stations are running dry. Lines of cars are stretching for miles, and drivers are getting rationed to just a few gallons at a time. Canada is cutting oil exports to the U.S. in retaliation against new tariffs, sending fuel prices soaring and shortages spreading fast. From Michigan's auto plants to Vermont's dairy farms, industries and daily life are feeling the impact. Today, we're breaking down how this crisis is unfolding. Right now, the northern United States is facing a fuel crisis that's spreading fast. Canada's Alberta oil producers are sharply cutting exports to the U.S., reacting to new tariffs Washington recently imposed. This isn't a minor disruption. Nearly 1.5 million barrels of crude that usually flow south each day are now either delayed or completely blocked. Gas stations in border states like Michigan and Washington are running low, and many are rationing fuel to just 8 to 10 gallons per customer. Why is this hitting so hard? A huge portion of U.S. northern states' fuel, up to 40% in Michigan alone, comes from Canadian crude moving through pipelines like Line 5 and cross-border tankers. Transport networks, from freight trucks to local deliveries, are already starting to clog, and prices are jumping faster than people have seen since the 2022 energy spike. Within days, consumers notice long lines, empty pumps, and industries, from auto plants to farms, scrambling to keep running. And this is just the beginning. As the ripple spreads, states further inland are starting to feel the pinch. Washington state is feeling the shockwaves of Canada's export cut faster than almost anywhere else. Cities like Seattle, Spokane, and Bellingham are seeing gas stations run low or completely dry, with pumps rationing fuel to just 8 to 10 gallons per car. The reason? Alberta oil, which usually flows through strategic ports and border crossings like Peace Arch and Sumas, has plunged more than 60% overnight. Tankers arriving in Seattle are often leaving empty, leaving both urban centers and rural towns scrambling. It's not just commuters who are suffering. Local industries are immediately impacted. Fishermen in Puget Sound can't get enough diesel to head out to sea, and shipping companies are canceling nearly a third of deliveries. Seasonal apple and cherry growers face a nightmare scenario. Harvest season is looming, and without fuel, getting produce to market is uncertain. Prices are spiking too, with gas climbing past $6 a gallon, the highest in over 20 years. Right now, Michigan is feeling the fuel crisis in real time. Gas stations across Detroit, Flint, and Grand Rapids are running low, with many rationing fuel to just 10 gallons per vehicle. Prices are jumping fast, climbing from $3.95 to $4.65 in just 4 days, making this the steepest surge since the 2022 energy spike. Drivers are lining up early in the morning, hoping to fill their tanks before supplies run out. The impact is spreading beyond commuters. Auto plants in Detroit, Dearborn, and Lansing are cutting shifts because shipments of essential parts are arriving late or not at all. Frozen food distributors are delaying deliveries, and transport companies are canceling long-haul routes to Ohio and Illinois. Pipelines like Line 5 and Enbridge, which usually keep Michigan's economy flowing, are delivering far less than usual, leaving both businesses and households scrambling. Governor Gretchen Whitmer is declaring a state of emergency, releasing state reserves, and extending working hours for fuel truck drivers to keep deliveries moving. While these measures are kicking in, the question is, how long can Michigan's auto heartland keep running? And as Michigan battles this crisis, New York's border communities are seeing shortages start to spike as well, setting the stage for the next wave of disruption. Communities along the St. Lawrence River, places like Jefferson, Franklin, and St. Lawrence counties, are running low on gasoline as deliveries from Quebec and Ontario slow down. Many gas stations are shutting down completely or operating only a few hours a day to stretch the dwindling supply, leaving residents driving 50 to 60 kilometers just to find a station that still has fuel. Prices are surging rapidly, with towns near the border seeing gas climb between $5.30 and $5.50 per gallon. Long lines are forming before dawn, and stations are rationing customers to 8 to 10 gallons each. Public services are getting priority. Ambulances are filling up first, while local bus routes are cutting back, and freight carriers are reducing runs. Farmers and small businesses are feeling the pinch too, struggling to get deliveries or keep equipment running. Households are adjusting their daily routines, bundling errands, cutting trips, and using fuel more cautiously. Major Minnesota cities like Minneapolis and Duluth are seeing gas stations running low, with chains such as BP, Holiday, and Speedway limiting customers to just 10 to 12 gallons per fill. In Duluth, authorities are even introducing rotating fuel schedules, designating specific hours for different neighborhoods so everyone can get at least some gas. By 5 a.m., vehicles are already lining up, with drivers racing to fill their tanks before their turn runs out. Fuel prices are jumping quickly across the state. The average price is approaching $5 per gallon, while rural and suburban areas are already exceeding $5.20. Families are adjusting daily habits, cutting unnecessary trips, bundling errands, and even shifting to remote work wherever possible to save fuel. Businesses are struggling as well. Trucking companies and delivery services are reporting operating costs rising by 30 to 40%, and farmers in counties like Stearns and Nobles are scrambling to keep tractors and grain dryers running during the harvest season. In North Dakota, the irony is striking. Even an oil-producing state is feeling the pinch. You'd think local crude production would keep the pumps full, but most of that oil is leaving the state, and the refined fuel people rely on is still coming from Alberta and the Great Lakes region. Within just 2 days of Canada cutting exports, gas stations in Minot and Williston are limiting sales to 10 gallons per vehicle, while smaller towns are closing entirely when deliveries don't arrive. Fuel prices are jumping almost overnight, from $3.85 to $4.45 in just 3 days, striking farmers in the middle of wheat, soybean, and canola harvests. Tractors sit idle, irrigation systems pause, and trucking companies moving crude to refineries are slowing down. Even black market fuel is appearing along the Canadian border, sometimes 30% more expensive than official prices. With emergency reserves being requested from the federal government, North Dakota shows how fragile the system is. Montana's vast landscape is making the fuel shortage feel even more severe. Communities are separated by hundreds of miles, and farms, ranches, and freight networks are all relying on steady shipments from Canada that simply aren't coming. In Billings, Great Falls, and Helena, gas stations are rationing drivers to just 8 to 10 gallons per fill, while in remote western towns like Kalispell and Missoula, pumps are running dry and stations are shutting doors entirely. Long-haul truckers crossing through Washington, Idaho, and North Dakota are finding no way to refuel, leaving frozen goods piling up in warehouses. Cold storage operators are warning of mounting losses as meat, produce, and dairy sit spoiled. Farmers are scrambling, diesel shortages are idling tractors and irrigation systems, and small trucking firms are shutting down entirely to avoid spiraling debt. Now, let's move on to Vermont. With its heavy reliance on Canadian fuel for heating and agriculture, it is now starting to feel the pressure, bringing the crisis into the Northeast. In Vermont, the fuel shortage isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's a full-blown crisis. Gas stations in Burlington, Montpelier, and St. Albans are running low, with many rationing fuel to just 8 to 10 gallons per vehicle. Prices have surged to over $5 per gallon, the highest in years. Residents are lining up before dawn, hoping to fill their tanks before supplies run out. But it's not just drivers who are feeling the pinch. Farmers across the state are struggling to fuel their equipment. Dairy farms in Addison and Franklin counties are facing delays in milk collection, while maple syrup producers are halting operations due to a lack of diesel for evaporators. Processing plants are cutting shifts as deliveries stall, and equipment sits idle, threatening both production and income. The impact extends to heating oil, essential for surviving Vermont's harsh winters. With inventories already low, many households are finding it difficult to secure enough fuel. The U.S. Department of Energy reported that diesel and heating oil inventories are 60% below average in New England, exacerbating the situation. State officials are urging residents to conserve fuel and are exploring emergency measures to address the shortages. However, with winter approaching, the situation remains dire. The fuel crisis that started at the Canadian border is spreading fast across the United States, and it's hitting states in ways no one expected. As we discussed, gas stations from the East Coast to the Pacific Northwest are running dry, with drivers lining up for hours, hoping to grab just a few gallons before supplies vanish. In New York, Michigan, and Washington, around a third of stations are already empty, and the chaos is spilling into daily life. Families are cutting trips, bundling errands, and shifting to remote work wherever possible, while businesses are seeing operating costs jump as transport delays mount. Fuel prices are skyrocketing, reaching $6 per gallon in some areas, pushing households and companies to the edge. Farmers are scrambling to keep tractors running and to get crops and dairy products to market, while trucking firms are canceling routes because they can't fuel up. Grocery shelves risk feeling the pinch as deliveries slow down, and cold storage operators are warning of spoilage in perishable goods. Governments are stepping in, tapping emergency reserves, allowing extended operating hours for fuel trucks, and implementing rationing in critical areas. Yet experts warn that these are temporary measures, unable to fully replace the steady flow of Canadian oil that the northern states depend on. The U.S. is facing a critical moment as gas stations are running dry, prices are climbing above $6 per gallon in some regions, and daily life is being disrupted across multiple states. Emergency measures like tapping the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and extending fuel truck operating hours are helping for now. But supplies are still tight, and the situation is evolving hour by hour. Experts are warning that unless domestic energy production increases and infrastructure is strengthened, shortages could continue if foreign supply chains remain unstable. Trucking companies, farmers, and local businesses are adjusting constantly to cope with limited fuel, while households are cutting trips and conserving wherever possible. So, how long will these shortages last, and what steps will the U.S. take to secure long-term energy stability? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit like if this breakdown helped you understand the crisis, and subscribe for more.